And we're live on a Monday, September 30th, 2024. Welcome to the Channel CEO podcast. The podcast is brought to you by the MSP M&A Growth Show. This is your typical snooze fest conference. This is where MSP owners and execs who are ready to make serious moves come to learn the ins and outs of getting acquired, scaling up, and dominating the M&A game. You'll get straight talk from the top of minds in industry, plus killer networking, one-on-one matchmaking sessions to help boost your sales and profitability. Next stops are Newark, New Jersey, October 24th. Then we've got one coming up shortly thereafter in Dallas, Texas. I believe that is in December, but don't sleep on it. Space is limited. We're getting registrations by the hour here. I want to make sure that you can attend. So hop over to channelprogram.com to register and get signed up. So really intrigued by today's podcast, especially given a lot of the content here recently around not just threats, but everything, kind of broadly speaking between, browsers, search engines, kind of the democratization of search engines, but that kind of parlays into kind of the data that you're served up, the ads that you're served up, the man-in-the-middle attacks, all this, crazy fun stuff that our next guest gets to deal with on a daily basis. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Osman Ekran. He's the CEO of DefensX. Welcome.
Hey, Kevin. How are you?
Oh, doing well. It's a second straight, some audio issues getting this thing set up in our new location here down in Annapolis, Maryland. But aside from that, I think we're good to go. But thanks for joining. You got a pretty interesting background, multiple startup founder in the space. Kind of a storied background, but kind of give us a quick rundown of what got you into the technology space in general.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, like every other person, I was dreaming, becoming another, Kevin Mitnick when I was a kid. Frankly speaking, rest in peace, by the way. So, and then everything started typical 10, 11 years, trying to program things and break and fix, so on and so forth. And all the education and the career built on tech. So that's how I can say a typical techie guy here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did I read correctly at one point you wanted to be an astronaut? Is that right?
Excuse me, say again?
Did I read in kind of the notes prepping that at one point you wanted to be an astronaut, or did I make that up?
Well, yes, I did. Yeah,
There we go.
That was another story. I wanted to be an astronaut, or no one knew those days. There were cosmonauts, astronauts, and we learned that there are taikonauts, and so on and so forth. So everyone is gonna name them differently. But yes, I wanted to be one. And I was reading all these novels, Asimov novels, and it was fun those days. I enjoy all this, but yeah, not plenty of time.
Got it. So, I guess formative years. I guess early on, what was kind of the spark? You said you kind of been a techie. You had Mitnick coming on the scene 10, 15 years ago. And talking about all this, crazy ways to hack individuals. But was that the spark, or was there something earlier than that got you interested in tech in general?
Well, interestingly, when you're a little kid, in a small neighborhood, and you are the one only understood who can fix the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
All your neighbors. You become that kid who are always invited to family dinners, but as a side job, you go and fix someone else's computer there, right? That's how it started. And when I just noticed that once you have the access to their computer, you have access to anything. It's key for the kingdom. And none of these beautiful, amazing people, my friends, families, didn't even realize what kind of danger was there. I was trained and educated so nicely, so I never just did anything nasty there. But when I told them, I could see how scared they were. So that was the moment I could realize hey, this is something. It's called power for sure, but you can use differently, right? So you can be on the dark side, which is enjoyable, of course, to some extent, or you can help protecting people. And the first time I wrote the firewall was 1999, and I named it firewall because I didn't believe that it could be sufficient. So long story short, I was all around like, in this business, like, being, have all these dilemmas like anyone else, thinking that, oh, like, when you get so much angry about something happening in the world, right? So like anything, you just immediately think, hey, there could be a shortcut fixing these problems, right? Going into dark side. So like, of course, like, that's always like something like, spins in your mind. But thanks, I've been always like in this space with great people, helped, the crowds and people freely surf on the internet. So when I grow, like, after like, college, and I realize, what brings us the most value as a human is, access to information, right? And if we don't protect our highways, then like, someone else is going to occupy that. So that's why, like, I have convinced myself, like, my early 20s, that, someone has to be out there who's not as, how can I say, sexy as Robert, like, Mitnick, but still like working for the community. So that's how it happened. Yeah.
And so you've spoken like a true entrepreneur, right? You kind of said there's got to be a better way. It's got to be a better way. It's a constant, I guess, sound that's playing in your head, or sound bite, or what have you. But so what was the first venture that you launched, the first startup?
Well, first startup, like in my previous life, is like, it's a privileged access management company. Long story short, there was a huge outage, statewide outage due to a configuration error. I cannot just, give more details for sure, but like, an engineer put like a copy and paste something from a PDF, manual, and there was a space which is not seen on the PDF, but like when you copy and paste, like it just simply created a BGP pitfall, like so simple. That router started screaming out, "I'm the source of the internet! I am the source of the internet!" And those years, like 15 years ago, not every protection was proper there, so it ended up with a catastrophic outage. So then, while seeing that, like not being a part of it, but people calls you, right? So like if you're around, hey, how can we fix this human error? Like, because that person has the access, no problem at all, they have authority, but it's a mistake. No one can blame anyone, and it's proven that it was a mistake. So that was the idea, between human and the infrastructure. You needed a smart interface to prevent these kind of like mistakes and like resulting catastrophe. Well, that was the privileged access management, start days in 2010, and it's a huge domain, frankly speaking. But yeah. I started DefensX a few years ago, and I quit my previous life.
Yeah. So you kind of jumped on that PAM, or the privileged access management, at probably those are early days of really. I mean, before that, yeah, there was like, there was containerization and structure, what have you, but there wasn't, it wasn't broadly defined like it was probably around 2010, 11, 12 was really where it started to become, kind of its own category. So that you're kind of the early days of getting into the PAM space. And so what was so you kind of go through that kind of that phase, or that business, and then you turn your attention into secure browser, right? And
Yep.
It's surprising, and probably not surprising to you, but it's still surprising that after what 30 plus years, 35 years, I don't know how long, of browsers in general, the threats are more pervasive, they're more catastrophic than they've ever been, right? It's incredible that it's as technologies evolved, as browsers evolved, and you got kind of competing browsers, you think security would be on lockdown at this point, but it's anything but. I think it's demonstrated by what you guys have built.
Well, very well said. I don't have good news in general, in the in the space.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
But we have to fight. But let me lay down this. So, the cybersecurity is going to be a topic forever. Unless we change the mentality of the software. So remember BlackBerry, the little nice gadgets. They had an operating system built for security, and it was really a kind of a great design. It was close to a military grade, kind of a service end to end. But people are not ready to pay for that. So we go back to the initial status where software has to be built so fast, and people are used to paying less than they are supposed to pay to the software. Then you have all these cyber problems. So these are hand to hand. So but when it comes back to how I see things evolved is yes. So things got more complicated because the efficiency, the ceteris paribus, you cannot just to be able to understand what changed the effect, you have to set all the parameters but play with one, right? That's not the luxury we have in these days. What happens is every instance, everywhere, on the cloud, on a private cloud, the objects, the number of things is massively growing, and every individual thing, I will just say thing here, it could be a server, a device, a virtual device, a part of quote a Kubernetes instance, or you name it, whatever it is, or AI bot. They create their own 360 attack surface. And as all we know from geometry and all of this, if you just break down things, the surface grows, and it's mechanics behind it. It's not even computer science or anything. It's mechanics. We just break down things to function better individually, and then we increase the surface. That surface is the attack surface. And combining it to the web browsers are I can tell you email is not a young friend as browsers, right? So how many years? I don't know, 35, 40, maybe just plus years. Yeah. We are still trying to defend email because a couple of things altogether: human, technology, and urgency. These three components work hand in hand, not helping us. Like the email. Email was an old swim lane, and the new swim lane as the web browser. When I have noticed that, and I have just I go back and check who's making these web browsers, and I was shocked. There were only 2.5 individual browsers are out there. One of them is thanks to open source community, Mozilla, and the other one is the Chromium. And Microsoft discontinued their efforts of their own browser. It failed many times. And Apple did a kind of 0.5 is the Apple, if you will. So, and it's so tough to bring something up to speed. And think about that. Internet is the most, how can I say, free space on this planet. And you don't require programming skills to put a content on the web. That gives its freedom, plus because it's democratic. So if you can be just a super bad programmer or no programmer at all, but you can upload some content. What is web browser's job and is to show end user that crappy content, not necessarily very well written content or programmatically correct content, in a fancy way, and display it to the end user. So we are using these web browsers, and they're helping us to consume internet. And it makes web browsers super complex. A Chromium has 35 million lines of code compared to Windows 11, which is 45-ish. 45 million Windows 11, 35 million lines of code in Chromium. And when I noticed that, I was like, wow, 35 million, 99.9% CC++ code. And I said, like, Jesus, like this is the next big thing to defend. That's how, like, I jumped into secure web browser.
It's funny. It's also, you had talk about kind of the evolution of some of these technologies, even just not just email. Well, maybe kind of take a step back. So 5, 10, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, let's go 5 years ago, right? Email was just, primarily served up through kind of Outlook. You had hosted Exchange. It was a program, right? Then it becomes the rise of, O365 in accessing your email through a web browser. I guess that was more pioneered early days by the Hotmail, Yahoo, and then in Gmail world. But, everything at this point is browser based. How you access your email, how you, everything you do, right? And same thing, there's kind of the app space on your phone, but I eventually guess still most people on the mobile devices are accessing content through, if not a social platform, it's through a browser directly, right? And so you've had this, accelerated, called proliferation of just access and usability, but then they've done it in a way where they want to mitigate the friction. They want to make it as friendly and make that a nice, beautiful user experience, and to your point, serve up the right content. But at the end of the day, it's left so many different vulnerabilities, right? And you guys actually have a pretty cool link to let's say it was a CISO report about just really the threats, the browser-based threats, whether it's like malvertising or what have you. And so, do you guys track, or have you guys seen? Is it a hockey stick kind of uptick in threats coming through the browser these days?
Well, browser is, as you have mentioned, like, it's predominantly the client right now. There were like, thick clients, fat clients, whatever, I don't know. I don't want to make a client shaming here, but like, there are different names for the clients out there where you just download and install on your computer, right? They are disappearing. They're evaporating. Microsoft Office is one good example, and the most important driver doing so. So, and you can compare yourself 3 years ago, even like last year and now, how much browser you use is like, doubled already, because no one wants to use like, other clients and then try to manage them. Like, you have to patch them, so on and so forth, right? I don't want to go into the details, but then, if you move your content to the cloud, either private or like, public, then web browser becomes the client. So that is the wave we are just like, seeing here. And it's not only large enterprises. Anyone is just consuming the corporate applications using web browsers, either on the mobile or on the desktop. So I see a future where, like, endpoints are disappearing, or like there will be again like thin client type of devices, but they will run like web browsers, and that will be the operating system. So that's why, like, DefensX is holding a unique position where there are 3.9 billion web browser instances running out there. We are the first and only at this stage company who just adds security to any type of web browser, and it gives us, as you have mentioned, a tremendous visibility over the cyber attacks. I can tell you, browsers, like, there are three important parts, people targeting web browsers. One of them are the state actors. For the state actors, like, we hear only after, like, they are announced by the browser, who produces browsers, right? Either Mozilla or like Chromium or like Microsoft or Chrome. They go out and say that, hey, like, we fixed this bug in the wild. We hear after that. So there is, it's going steady, if you ask me. So, but the most important part when you're just like listening to cyber threats or attacks are, we only know what we know. So if no one realizes what's going on there, if it's not published, or no one has realized there was kind of a flaw in the web browser code, we don't know it. Maybe there are 2 million other flaws exist, but we don't know it yet. So that's the first part. The second part is cybercrime for profit. So cybercrime for profit is people who they don't know each other, they come together, create an economy. I think that's one of the largest economies in the world, and then these type of attacks are constantly evolving and changing. Mm-hmm. And we see increase every other month, not every other year. So think about that. The traditional approach is, hey, the attacks are coming from known countries. Fantastic. Let's block these countries. Yes, let's do it. That's the easy. You can do it for 20 years. But there is no regulation, and we don't want those regulations to be present on the internet, right? Otherwise, internet wouldn't be internet. Then any people can hide behind any service, Amazon service, Microsoft service. Then you see people are masquerading themselves coming from a trusted source. Wow, that is the bigger problem. So people are hiding more and more into existing services. When you go and check on the threat intel databases, they are all green. I mean, green is a sign for, hey, we are all good. This is safe. Mm-hmm. Right. Because we could fix, the industry could fix a type of, hey, these domains are risky. Okay, let's mark these domains risky. Okay, and this works so far, at some certain level of it created a certain level of protection. But what happens with the proliferation of the cloud services are people can hide their attack scripts or attack tools behind any social network, for instance, or behind any Amazon services or any Azure service. Think about that. Me being able to run 1,000 different instances, having 1,000 different IP addresses, globally distributed, starting an attack for 30 minutes, and then collecting all the treasure, whatever I can, all the victims, and going again offline, off the grid, if you will, takes 30 minutes, and the cost is $1,000 using it. So how can you trace? There's no trace. It's gone. IP addresses are there. Someone else is using all these operating systems who just distribute Linuxes. They start all of a sudden, perform the attack, and they dismantled. There's nothing you can trace. So this is the new and emerging type of attacks we are seeing globally. That's why we are improving our defenses and the target, email and web browser, actually, two targets. Of course, if you're there are other attack surfaces, but I'm talking about the individual end users, right? So there are two important parts, two important entry points. So we see more people are just attacking multi-factor authentication chain, because it's a false sense of security when you are using multi-factor authentication, because it's not only the password you need to defend, it's your how can I say, it's called cookie, but browser eats in every session, alongside with coffee, which was Java at those days. But anyhow, but those cookies are pose more threat than the passwords, because you have password and you can protect it with multi-factor authentication methods. But if you lose your cookie, session cookie, then that's you're done. It's a $3.2 million worth of a breach. So these are the angles where cyber criminals are focusing on these days and increasing over the years, by a factor of 2. And the third part is just because of the HTML5 and WebAssembly type of next generation web technologies are helping to create singing and dancing experiences on the web, right? They also become a tool at the hands of the adversaries, as well as the AI. So all these, like everything has two face, like a flip side. Any new technology could be used by adversaries, bad guys, to attack. But as vendors, we have to use them to build better defenses and layered better defenses to protect, the assets, especially the human itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to your point, you mentioned that you're dealing with the browser and you're dealing with email security, and arguably, I don't even think it's arguably. I think factually, those are the two largest attack vectors that are out there, right? Never mind like just surface area, but just sheer volume of users, volume of threats that come inbound every day through the email, and then obviously browser-based exploits or attacks, right? You're going after some of the biggest challenges out there. And so I think for most, I think maybe it's projecting a little bit on behalf of the MSP, but the MSP is probably saying it's browser protection, right? And kind of the users just all right, you're gonna block a pop-up, right, or something like that. They really don't understand kind of the zero trust elements, kind of behind the scenes that you're dealing with, whether it's from files or credentials or what have you. Like you're having to think in kind of like this 4D chess kind of way. It's not just this kind of one static, we're blocking this thing. You've got this, you've got now this bleeding of zero trust that's now associated with the browser, but then you're also dealing with just kind of another kind of a legacy exploit. It's been out there for 30 years, DNS, right? So yeah, maybe talk about kind of the challenges, because you're dealing, it's not just attack vector, right, but you're dealing with multiple layers of potential exploit coming through your screen, basically.
Well, yes, very true. So first of all, you have to have a 360 degrees of an approach to be able to follow and understand what's going on. So when it comes to the web browsers, like web browser itself, there is another element which is the DNS. DNS is so important because everything is related with DNS. Everything is related with DNS, right? So that's without correlating yourself with the DNS layer of the operating system, which still exists right now. Maybe 5 or 10 years later, we don't have that operating system layer. Maybe we don't have that DNS element anymore. But right now we have those. So to be able to understand what's going on and come with a proper analysis of what's going on, you need to have your visibility in the web browser. You have to have your visibility on the DNS layer as well, the network layer, if you will. Just for just an example, Microsoft Copilot, so which is the ultimate right now tool Microsoft is pushing to every other instance. It's coming bundled with the operating system right now. To be able to protect that, you have to have a browser protection and you have to have DNS protection at the same time. If one of them is missing, then you cannot protect. You cannot just prevent DLP data leaks, because Microsoft will dump your data unless you enforce end user to log in, right?
Yeah.
This is one example how I can just tell you how these have to work hand in hand to be able to understand and analyze what's going on. But again, throughout in the coming years, operating system element will be will shrink. The applications, the fat clients has already shrank, but it's going to shrink further. And the DNS element will be less a problem. But so today you need both of them to be able to provide a great experience to the end users and minimize the false positives. So the second part of your question, what I would tell is the cybersecurity's number one problem is not cyber threats. It is the resource. So we are fighting with like, a greater army with people of a few. So we have to act and work smart. And anyone who is in this domain, especially managed service providers who are trying to cut the costs down by, let's say, 1 to 10th. So that's the managed service provider's promise, right? So you have to work smart. You have to focus on what matters the most. That is initially designed target of DefensX from the day one, because we are coming very close from that space, understanding the challenges, and any false positive is killing the cybersecurity efficiency. So you can have like all the protections, but if they are too noisy, you won't be able to hear the real scream that matters most. Maybe like there's something happening in your next door, but there's a ton of noise. You cannot just hear that noise. That's why, like us, like anyone should start in a silent environment and focus on what to hear first. Otherwise, easily, we could get lost easily. Like if we started looking for multiple places and trying to understand it. Now we have focused on the web browser. Then the next element would be the DNS layer to combine, correlate that. We focused on that, and we create less but so effective noise, almost like 100% actionable, because we understand the human element interfacing with them. So this is crucial for managed service providers to think twice before deciding any tool. That's my humble advice, because if you start listening to a ton of noise, you cannot just focus on what you are doing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I think that's that alert fatigue, the noise fatigue. I mean, it's real, it's material, and the last thing they want is last thing anybody on a desk or in a knock or sock or whatever wants that additional layer of noise. And you guys do a fantastic job of mitigating that. So what's this look like in a year from now, 2 years from now? Is there another layer? Is there is AI factoring into how you build or how you defend?
So AI is already a part of our defense, especially we focus on the human element more than like anything else, because without human, no one is clicking anywhere, right? So
Right. True.
and that's so. If you just, the algorithms work as as designed, almost like flawless if it's designed well. But human, which is the core element of anything on this planet, any businesses, right? Human is the core element. We use AI to better understand and predict the human risk. So in the past, industry tried to use AI and similar methodologies like machine learning and all the different layers of that, trying to understand the network packets or the behavior of attackers or so on and so forth. Let almost inefficient, and highly noisy environments. Okay, AI could be thought as a suspicion machine when it comes to analytics, right? You expect your AI to create some to find something suspicious, and then you just you add human element on that and to further analyze, right? So that didn't end up nicely. So either it's so noisy, then it costs a lot, or it doesn't tell you, it doesn't get enough suspicious to prevent breaches. So that is a kind of a yesterday's approach. So we use AI to focus on human risk. Suppose that there are few people in an organization who doesn't take care about cyber hygiene at all, and we all can pinpoint those people, right? And from their behavior starts, maybe always they were like that, and then incident happens. There is a gray zone, and we are in the dark. We don't know, and only after the fact we can trace and we can find, oh, these individuals caused this breach, but it's already too late. It's too late and too little, that approach. So what we do, we focus on every signal coming from the human element. I mean, because they are using most of their time in front of the web browsers. And of course, the operating system, but like 90% of the information we gather using the data from the is from the web browser. So of course we anonymize actions, we anonymize PII data, we anonymize anything. So but at the end of the day, think about the 40, 60 letters of an object ID, and nearby we said, oh, this object ID has the risk of causing the next breach. And that object ID in the MSP's interface translates into 3 letters, like maybe it's KAVL. So that's you, and the organization can pinpoint you, right? Mm-hmm. And the moment AI detects your resilience dropped for whatever reason, then our platform kicks in and enforces you to take a cybersecurity training right at that moment. Not 3 months later, not a week later. So if you start, let's say, typing weak passwords, or your behavior turns into kind of, I don't want to say rogue, but weird, then we understand that. And the best part of the web browser is we have the source of data to attribute what you have done. We don't see that, but you can see, oh, what have I done? That's why I'm seeing this, and then here is the list. You have done this, you have done that, you have done that. You clicked here, you download this file, you try to upload this huge Excel file to this unknown destination, etc. So this is where AI is taking the core place, and we are investing huge to improve our recommendation engine with AI, because we it's not only you detect things, but we are providing managed service providers a recommendation engine working by itself, creating recommendations for managed service providers to justify the investment or demonstrate risk behavior in the end customers and create a talking point, right? So one example, I know I spoke a lot, but I'm going to finish in a bit. But
no, please.
One of the managed service providers came and said, we have identified a walking malware. I was like, what? What's a walking malware? They were talking about an individual who never complied any cyber hygiene rules. They knew that, but they couldn't prove it. And then it was screaming there, hey, this individual is going to cause the next breach. And now they have the evidence. They just, put in front of the customer. Customer understands that. And they have, how can I say it? Most of the time, it's like a smoking gun. And this helps managed service providers to create a meaningful context to talk to their customers and show the proof of value. That's why we are investing heavily on the AI, and especially this what we call autopilot, which trains the end user, measures risk, and trains. And it's one switch, you enable it, and it automatically takes place. So you don't need to follow that every day. So this is what we are coming with using AI.
I said that's brilliant, because having built a legacy security awareness training platform, and sold that a number of years ago. At that point, we even felt like it was kind of like, in lack of better description, and obviously it's gotten better as technologies evolve, but it's almost like dumb training. It's not even reactionary training. It's just training for training's sake. It wasn't training based on actual incidents or predictability of incident based on existing or forecasted behavior. And if you're getting to that space where it's not just creating a profile, right, and then say, hey, take this. It's creating a profile, anonymized, right, but creating a profile and then being predictive about kind of the attributes or behavior of that individual, and proactively getting in front of that versus reactively getting, you're trying to catch up and do this training. And I honestly, I think that's where, that's where every vendor needs to be thinking about their solutions in that, kind of with that, I don't know, dynamic in mind. It's not maybe not applicable to every type of tool that's out there, because a lot of them are not customer facing. They're kind of behind the scenes. But with where you're going with this, right? Because you have that actual interactivity, user behavior on screen, right? And you can kind of get in that space and lever AI to be predictable. And I think that's going to be a very important element of probably compliance frameworks moving forward. And certainly cyber insurers are going to want MSPs and their customers to be thinking, that way about, risk mitigation proactively before you even get to the point. And that's going to be all about changing user behavior to prevent them from actually doing these things, whether it's, maliciously. Often it's not maliciously, right? It's just stupid user error or behavior. But yeah, I love that. That's kind of the next evolution of this. My goodness, that's getting in some uncharted territory where you can have really meaningful impact on the threat of breach, right?
Well, yep, exactly. Because the learning, you have the training, like individuals have the training, and their vigilance jumps, right? So that's what happens till the next training, that just goes almost to zero, and then another training, another jump. So with this approach, it's like always it's at highest, because whenever we understand it drops, we just kick in. It's not a punishment for sure. The content, and by the way, we are democratic in content. So whoever has, we are not cybersecurity training content provider. We are the platform, delivering this. So we are open for any cybersecurity training content provider to cooperate in this battle. But just as a note, but we see this this is the solution, at least for this era. But 5 years later, I don't know what's going to happen. But right now, this sounds so interesting for anyone, and we have our so far beta testers are so happy about it. We're going to launch that soon.
That's awesome. That's great. Osman, I really thank you for joining me on the show. And I know, certainly encourage everybody to go out and check out the site. It's DefensX, so DefensX.com. Certainly you can interact and connect with the team there. I also see that you guys are prominently displayed in the Pax8 marketplace as well.
Yep.
So you got PAX is picking you up and carrying your torch, and that's a good thing. So hopefully get some wide distribution, because this is obviously it's a growing threat vector. Again, it's almost in a lot of ways shameful to say that 30 years on with browsers that it's a growing threat vector, but it is what it is, and I'm glad you guys are there to try to mitigate those threats. So thanks for doing what you're doing there.
It was great chatting you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right.